The first conversation starts with your architect. We paid $4,500 for MEP work as well. Existing metal scuppers and leaders to be refurbished. We are going to replace those with copper. No one really gives you shit if you use nice materials. It's not true, but you know, we're not putting vinyl up. People go to school for this stuff. What's up, YouTube? This is video number 3 in our series about developing neglected buildings and developing real estate sustainably. To us, that means older buildings. They come with challenges. They also come with a lot of opportunity. We're gonna talk a little bit about some of the behind the scenes stuff. This is a building permit. It cost us $9,526. This roll of paper costs us about $20,000. We're gonna break out what it is, show you why you need it, and some of the costs you'd expect to pay. Let's jump into it. The first stage of getting your permit set is your A series. That's your architectural series. We paid about $10,000 for our architectural series, and that is a steal. This A series is part of our permit set, so we really don't need interior elevations. We don't need designers. We don't need, we don't need the wallpaper specs called out. We're gonna use nice high-end finishes, but on the more affordable side. So think white subway tile, something that's more timeless, not so gaudy, flashy, anything else. So we're developer builders in this. We don't need an architect to tell us what the tile needs to look like, where the grout joints need to go. So you can pay for that. It's not a waste of money on certain projects. For us though, we design a lot of that in the field, and we'll go over that in a couple of videos. Pretty much you're gonna start with a 0.1. Sometimes this is replaced with a zoning series or a Z series. In this case, we just need a cover sheet for our A series. And that varies by township, by city, by state even. A 0.1 has our code summaries on this top right side. It has our lot callouts, how far we are from other properties. It has our proposed lot lines and any zoning callouts that we might need. It has our occupancy, our egress. A lot of that's more relevant in commercial projects. So the first conversation starts with your architect. Coming up with this A series, they'll know local codes and what you need to get done. And they'll generally work with you on price too if you tell them the depth that you want them to dive into. They monetize their time as they should. It's a really important skill. This A series usually starts with a demo sequence. It has existing walls and existing stairs and existing openings called out, and they're usually hashed out where they're getting removed, and they also have a proposed layout. The most important thing for us is the floor plan. We need to know how to get square footages. We need to know, how the room flows work. We need it when we're designing our HVAC. So your A series is really where you start things off. If your architect plays nice with your engineers too, they might share their CAD file. That can save you money on engineering. Some architects don't like to do that because there's proprietary information in there, and they should and need to protect themselves. Others, are down for the cause. So we have our existing conditions, then we have our proposed floor plans. That gets us a ton of information. We don't need too many elevations other than exterior for window. But interior, that's a really great place to get us started. We have our commercial drawings as well, and commercial space, you really have to follow strict ADA guidelines. So there needs to be ADA accessible toilets, there need to be ADA accessible entrances, and there needs to be, if you have a bi-level space like we do in this instance, we need to have the same amenities on one level as there are on the other. So that's something that an architect is really imperative to come up with. The city will review this, or the township will review this to make sure that you're hitting code requirements. And part of why you pay $9,526 is they need to go through and review everything. Make sure hallways are wide enough. Make sure you have the proper egress from a bedroom or a bathroom. Make sure, if you have a bathroom or a bedroom, that there's a window in it. And if it's a bathroom with no window, that you have a vent plan called out. There is a ton of information, and it's kind of amazing how much information you can translate on these pages. Reading them in its own art form. There's a Philadelphia architect. We actually haven't worked with him yet, but I follow him on TikTok and Instagram. I'll post a link to this video. It'll show you how to read these architectural blueprints, because we learned in the field, people go to school for this stuff. So we're calling out floor plans, we're calling out skylights, we are calling out ADA toilets, we are calling out tenant spaces, we're calling out entrances. And there's all these finish schedules on the side, which your subcontractors are gonna use to bid out the work. And if you're in a commercial environment like a restaurant, that becomes really critical for keeping dust off food prep areas or having fire rated surfaces behind open flames. We're just developing the commercial space into a vanilla box. So the client's contract, or the tenant's contractor will do all this work. It's still pretty important to know how to read that and know the importance of having this stuff on there. Our architect, Mark, he did a really great job of combining the existing floor plan into the proposed. So that gives us a really good reference in the field of knowing what walls need to come down rather than having to overlay or compare two things side by side. It's like photo hunt when you do it that way. What's different about these drawings? So that's really easily done on the computer, and not all architects do that courteousness necessity for you. Proposed basement plan, proposed roof plan. This is gonna call out what we put on the roof. We have a 60 mil roof membrane with 2 layers of 2.5 inch poly iso. I'm so excited for that video because we're doing a TPO warm roof with 5 inches of reclaimed poly iso that we found from this really not shady place on Craigslist. And the roof is a really important detail. That's where a lot of the heat is lost or gained. So your insulation on the roof usually pays you back tenfold over the course of a building. So this calls out, mechanicals that are going to live on the roof. This calls out the slope of an eighth of an inch per foot. I'd like it if it was more than that, but such is life. There is a porch detail below. There is rain scupper boxes. So if there's one thing that you really need, it's a good A-series. This A3.1 calls out all of our windows, and it calls out all of our storefront assemblies. We're not in the historic district right now for this building, which is amazing because that gives us a little bit more freedom to fix this building as we want to, as we see fit. We're keeping it classy. We're doing a lot of brick. We're doing a lot of copper. We are not cramming as many apartment buildings in here as possible, but there's still things that we're doing to save money. In the first video, the one that's linked right here, and the first one in the playlist, episode 1, we talk about removing these giant storm windows that would have cost us $50,000 or $60,000 to replace. That gives us outdoor space, that gives us a quick turnaround, and that saves us from doing really dangerous work above a sidewalk of handling, a couple thousand pounds of windows. That's something that's kind of called out here, what we're gonna do. So there's other key exterior notes. There is a privacy fence that's called out. There is a glass and storefront that's gonna be refurbished. We're gonna replace it. So again, you can see, existing metal scuppers and leaders to be refurbished. We are gonna replace those with copper. No one really gives you shit if you use nice materials. It's not true, but we're not putting vinyl up. This window call out, the side elevation and the rear elevation is really important if you're bidding out windows. We always verify in the field, but this gives us a good basis for us to bid things out on. We can send this scaled drawing to our window contractor. They can run it through their software and get us within 5% of what it's gonna cost for a window. So we can start comparing the cost of double glazed versus triple glazed windows, or vinyl versus fiberglass versus aluminum clad wood. A 4.1 is a door and window call out, different schedules of what we're gonna use. We're gonna use single leaf, solid core, looks like 5-panel doors. We're gonna use flush panel doors. There is some other glass panel doors, calls out our window types, calls out our floor assemblies. These assembly types are really important. They're really crucial for our subcontractors to reference. And it's worth saying that I've never been on a project where this is what happens in the field. If we hit 90% of what happens in the architectural drawings in the field based on conditions, we are in a very good place. Probably shouldn't be saying that we deviate, but the moral of that story is that these are an incredibly useful tool, this A-series, but sometimes it changes. And it's up to the contractor and the owner to know if you're surpassing what you're allowed to do with code, or if you need to get the city to reapprove things. I'm sure we're gonna edit about 80% of that out, but that is our A-series. This is our $10,000 A-series. Before we jump into the S-series, it's worth talking about the cost of the design work. Generally, projects, you spend between 10 and 20% of their proposed budget on just this paper. And it generally takes about as long as it does to construct. So keep that in mind. And it also shows you the importance of shopping around for details and working with these design professionals more than one time so you can tell them exactly what you need, so you're not paying for what your tile layout in the shower needs to be. So if you guys are still with us after that, that talk about our A-series and how important it was, I hope you are, because there's some really ton of great detail to cover. I know John nodded off in the back. There's a little drool stain down his shirt. It's gross because this is my kitchen. This is where I eat. That kind of explains the weird, funky artwork.
No, it doesn't.
Then second most important document is our S-series. That is our structural series. This is only 3 pages because we're not really moving too much around. You can see at the top right, it's been stamped by our structural engineer. The copy I'm sitting in front of was counter-stamped by the Township of Lower Merion. So the first sheet shows the existing and demolition plan. These show the hashed lines, and they also, tell us roughly where the structural work is going to be. Sheet 2 out of 3 shows our proposed location, and what this does is lets us know what we can remove that's not load-bearing or not structural. So these 3 sheets in conjunction show us, what walls are load-bearing, and if they're load-bearing, how we're going to remove or modify them in a safe manner. So the bulk of what we paid for is on ST1, which is the 3rd sheet of our structural set. That shows us what type of lumber we need to close things out. It shows us the steel beams that we need to insert into our masonry to create these wider openings to unify the 2 commercial spaces. It has a stamp, it has lag bolt callouts and specifications. It's not a very detailed S series because there's not a lot of structural work we're doing. We're closing a couple floor openings, we are opening some masonry openings, we're creating a side door. Not too much. We paid about $4,500 for this structural set. That was stamped, that included 2 site visits, and that includes any consultations we may need in the field. So by far the beefiest is our MEP set. This calls out our HVAC work, this calls out our ventilation, and this arguably has the most detail in there. We'll send this to our plumbers, we'll send this to our electricians, we'll send this to our sprinkler fitters, and they will use this to come up with pricing and calculations. The MEP is broken up into 4 sets. We have our HVAC drawings. In this case, we have a lot of mini splits called out, where they're going, where the condensers are going, what kind of wiring goes in between them, where the thermostat's located, where the makeup air is located, where the bathroom fans are. It's really just a shit ton of detail. The next one is fire protection. It calls out our fire alarms. It calls out where our sprinkler heads are going. And this part of the MEP gets sent to our sprinkler contractors who go to a third-party design firm and call out the frequency of the sprinkler heads and how many pounds per square inch of water we need coming into the building, which dictates the size of our water line. So as you can see, there's a lot of homework that needs to happen before we even break ground. Our P series shows our plumbing work. It shows the size of the drain lines. It shows the size of the water supply lines coming in. It shows what they're made of, whether they're PEX or whether they're copper, whether they're PVC. It shows how many roof vents we need. It shows where roof vents roughly will be located. And it shows kind of how it ties into the rest of the system. We have drains for our condensate for our HVAC systems. That's tied in. So it's really helpful to have one firm do all of your MEP drawings all at once. I don't want to jump into too much detail here because it's going to be really boring, but I can, jump into the prices that we paid. We paid $4,500 for MEP work as well, and then we paid another $2,500 on top of that. We had our stamped MEP drawings from Chestnut Engineering, who did our original drawings, and the Township of Lower Merion, where this project is, actually requires us to get them counter-stamped by another engineer. I think the reason they do that is kind of they're limited in manpower and their building. So this is another certification that the calculations are good. If you're not self-building this, if you have a contractor you're working with, it's really worth having them involved in this conversation too. There's a couple recommendations that they can make. Mini splits might cost 50% more than a ducted unit. So knowing those things before you pay to have design work done and then have to redo it, that really is where you're going to save a lot of money, and that's what makes successful developers successful and unsuccessful ones. Our electrical MEPs call out a ton. These are probably the most complicated series. They call out our fire alarms, they call out the light frequency, they call out how big the electrical lights need to be, what the bulbs types are, and everything down from where the panels are located, how thick the wire is from the panels going in, going out, and what they service. And these all kind of talk to each other too. Once we have our permit set done, once we have our MEPs, our architecture, our zoning, and our structural drawings, that's not the end of the paperwork. It's kind of only the beginning. There's certain things we need to have calculated and spec'd out by additional subcontractors. Our sprinkler drawings, for example, the designs need to be verified. We need to send that to a third party, and we have to have enough capital to pay our sprinkler contractors to do the design work. That goes to a third party subcontractor, and that goes to a third-party design firm from them. So you can kind of see how convoluted this all gets. That impacts the utility companies that we work with. We have to start the process of getting the right utilities brought to the building, and that kind of can't happen without the MEP work, which can't happen without the structural work, which can't happen without the architectural work. This is all something that contractors and developers do behind the scenes, and you know, my favorite days are in the field, but the most productive ones are in front of a desk. For the most part, this covers what makes up your permit set. And once you have that, equally important, you need a contractor that's licensed where you're doing business, where you're developing this property. And luckily, we know one. He's got 2 thumbs and looks like this. If you guys are interested in what it takes to become a licensed general contractor, drop us a comment. But I will say this, it's not that difficult. And being a general contractor is not a testament to how skilled you are as a builder. It's about how much paperwork you've done and how much insurance you carry. All right, guys, I'm exhausted. We've done like 4 takes of this video. We forgot to record it once. It's at the end of the day. Everyone's calling, everyone's yelling. Projects are in different stages, but we have our permit set. Lower Merion, the township we're working, doesn't do online submissions. So we actually have to print this out, not just 1 copy, but we have to take 3 copies to the township so they can review it. They'll keep 1 on record and give us at least 2 back. This, that was like $250 to print this stuff all out. And it's also worth noting that Lower Merion requires us to get all of our permits at the same time. So we need our sprinkler permit, we need our building permit, we need our electrical permit, we need our mechanical permit, we need our zoning permits, and there's a couple other ones, all at the same time. That means we have to have all of our subcontractors called out, licensed in the township, and you know, with the proper insurance. That was a giant headache to get done, but on the flip side, we don't have to worry about getting W-9s or getting work comp COIs from our subcontractors down the road. So our financing is almost done. We are almost ready to start building, and I'm really curious to see how short we can cut this video into. If you stuck around to the end, we really appreciate it. Drop us some comments on what you want us to cover next, and I can't wait to see you in a couple weeks with a hammer. Thanks, guys. We spent, I can't say that. You're looking at a broke mother right now. All right.
You're
looking at a broke mother right now. Okay. We want to talk about